HOA President Harold crossed the line when he sent fake cops to arrest my 17-year-old son for playing basketball in our driveway. He smugly cited made-up quiet hours rules. Little did he know, I'm the city's police commissioner, and his reign of terror was about to end. Before watching full video, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The day started like any other in our quiet suburban neighborhood of Oakwood Heights. The sun was bright, birds were chirping, and my 17-year-old son Tyler was shooting hoops in our driveway. I had just been appointed as the police commissioner of our city 3 months ago, but we hadn't made a big deal about it in the neighborhood. My wife thought it would be good to maintain some privacy, especially with how crazy some of our neighbors could be. And by crazy neighbors, I specifically mean Harold Wilkinson, the president of our homeowners association. A retired accountant with nothing better to do than measure grass height and cite residents for violations of the 78-page HOA rulebook he had personally expanded over the last 5 years. I was working in my home office when I heard shouting outside. Looking through the window, I saw 2 men in what looked like police uniforms handcuffing my son next to our basketball hoop. I rushed outside immediately. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded. Harold stepped forward with a smug smile. "Your son has violated HOA Rule 43.7, Section B. No recreational activities that produce excessive noise between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., which is designated quiet hours for our retired residents." I looked at the 2 officers restraining my son. Their uniforms looked similar to our city's police but had subtle differences. The badges were not official, and their patrol car parked nearby had "Neighborhood Security" written on it, not "Police." "Who are these men and why are they wearing fake police uniforms?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "They're from the private security company the HOA hired," Harold said proudly. "They have the authority to enforce HOA rules and detain violators until compliance is established." My son looked embarrassed and angry. "Dad, they just came up and grabbed me." I wasn't even being loud. One of the security guards spoke up. The young man was uncooperative and verbally aggressive when informed of the violation. I walked closer, my blood boiling but my exterior cool and professional. "Release my son. Now." Harold stepped between us. "I'm afraid I can't do that. He needs to learn that rules." I interrupted by pulling out my police commissioner ID and badge. "I am Commissioner Michael Reynolds of the City Police Department. You are currently impersonating police officers, which is a felony. You have illegally detained a minor without proper authority. Release my son immediately, or I will have real officers here in 2 minutes to arrest all of you." The color drained from Harold's face. The security guards looked at each other in panic and quickly removed the handcuffs from Tyler's wrists. This is just a misunderstanding," Harold stammered. "The HOA has the right to enforce. The HOA has the right to issue fines and warnings, not to hire men to impersonate police officers and physically detain residents," I said. "Everyone stay right here." I called the real police department and requested officers to come to my address. Within minutes, 3 patrol cars arrived. I explained the situation to the officers, who took statements from everyone involved. The 2 security guards were arrested for impersonating police officers. Harold was taken in for questioning regarding his role in hiring them and instructing them to detain residents. As they loaded Harold into the back of a patrol car, the neighbors came out to watch. "This isn't over," Harold shouted as they closed the door. "The HOA agreement allows for security measures." I put my arm around Tyler's shoulders. "Are you okay?" He nodded, rubbing his wrists. "Yeah, but that was crazy. He's been hassling other kids too." That night, I reviewed the city codes and the HOA agreement. What Harold had done wasn't just wrong, it was illegal on multiple levels. The HOA could hire security, but they couldn't impersonate police or detain people. The quiet hours rule he cited didn't even exist in the official HOA documents that were filed with the city. Harold had been making up rules and enforcing them however he wanted. The next morning, I went to work with a plan. This wasn't just about my son anymore, it was about stopping an out-of-control HOA president who was terrorizing the neighborhood. First, I ordered a full investigation into the security company Harold had hired. We discovered they had been operating without proper licensing and had been involved in similar incidents in other neighborhoods. Their business license was suspended, and the owner faced multiple charges. Next, I arranged for our department's forensic accountant to examine the HOA's financial records, which were public documents. What they found was shocking. Harold had been embezzling funds for years, paying the security company inflated rates and skimming the difference. But I wasn't done. I organized a town hall meeting for our neighborhood and personally invited every resident. The community center was packed. Nearly everyone showed up, curious about what had happened with Harold's arrest. I stood at the podium in my full uniform. Thank you all for coming. As many of you know, yesterday our HOA president was arrested for hiring fake police officers to detain my son for playing basketball in our driveway. But this goes beyond one incident. I presented the evidence we had gathered, photos of the fake officers, copies of the made-up rules Harold had been enforcing, and the financial records showing his embezzlement. 4 years, Harold Wilkinson has been ruling this neighborhood through intimidation and lies. He's made up rules that don't exist, fined people illegally, and pocketed HOA funds that should have gone to community improvements. The crowd was shocked. People began standing up, sharing their own stories of Harold's abuses. Elderly residents fined for having medical equipment visible from the street, families threatened for having children's toys in their yards, ridiculous paint color restrictions that only applied to certain residents. Mrs. Jenkins, an 82-year-old widow, stood up with tears in her eyes. He fined me $500 for having my grandson's bicycle on my porch overnight. I had to take money from my medication budget to pay it. The stories kept coming, each one worse than the last. By the end of the meeting, we had documented over 200 incidents of Harold's abuse of power. Here's what happens next, I announced. Harold will face criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to impersonate police officers. The security guards have already confessed and are cooperating with our investigation. I paused, looking around the room. But we also need to fix the HOA itself. I propose an emergency election for a new HOA board, with strict oversight and transparency measures in place. The vote was unanimous. A 5-person committee was elected on the spot to run the HOA temporarily until formal elections could be held. The first act of the new committee was to reverse all of Harold's fake rules and refund the illegal fines he had collected. 3 weeks later, Harold's case went to court. He faced multiple felony charges and was looking at significant jail time. During the proceedings, even more of his schemes came to light. He had been targeting certain residents he didn't like, particularly families with children and minorities, while ignoring violations from his friends. The judge, disgusted by the evidence, denied Harold's request for bail. The court finds the defendant's actions to be a serious abuse of power that harmed an entire community, she said. As Harold was led away, he glared at me with pure hatred. I simply nodded to him, professional to the end. The transformation of our neighborhood was remarkable. The new HOA board, led by a retired judge who moved in a year ago, established fair and transparent rules. Regular meetings were held where residents could voice concerns. The excessive fees Harold had collected were used to build a community playground and renovate the neighborhood park. 6 months later, Harold was sentenced to 8 years in prison for his crimes. The security company owner received 5 years. The story made national news, sparking discussions about HOA oversight and regulation across the country. On the 1-year anniversary of the incident, as neighbors now called it, we held a block party in the street. Children played freely, music played, and neighbors who had previously been afraid to even put up a holiday decoration now chatted happily with each other. Tyler, now preparing for college, helped organize games for the younger kids. He had become something of a neighborhood hero for being the catalyst that brought down Harold's reign of terror. Mrs. Jenkins approached me during the party, looking happier and healthier than I had seen her in years. "Commissioner, I never thought I'd enjoy living here again. Thank you for saving our neighborhood." I smiled, watching the community celebrate together. "I just enforced the law, Mrs. Jenkins. You all did the hard work of rebuilding." My wife squeezed my hand. "Not bad for a guy who just wanted his son to be able to play basketball in peace." I laughed. "The lesson here is simple: don't mess with people's kids. Especially when you don't know who those people are." As the sun set on our neighborhood, I reflected on how one moment of standing up against a bully had transformed not just our lives, but an entire community. Sometimes justice comes from unexpected places, like a driveway basketball hoop and a father who happened to be the police commissioner. Harold would have plenty of time in prison to think about the irony of that.